Okay, let me go through a few topics that you struggle with in the CAN homework. So the first one I saw was this thing where you're given an equation, right? And then you're supposed to sub m, let's say m equals 21 and n equals 12. Now when you substitute these values in, I like to put them in brackets like so. Half times n, which is 12. All right. Now, when you're doing fraction multiplication, okay, so when you're doing fraction multiplication, like this one here, for example, you simply, if it's a whole number, you just multiply that to the top. So that'll be 21 over 3. And then you simplify. So when you're simplifying fractions, you can divide them both by a common factor. So in this case, you can divide them both by 3, right? So 21 divided by 3 is 7, and then 3 divided by 3 is 1. So 7 over 1 is just 7. Anything divided by 1 is 7. Okay, so like 100 over 1 is 100. And let's say, like 2000 over 1 is also 2000. Similarly, if you have, let's say, 567, that can be rewritten as 567 over 1, which is handy when sometimes you need to combine them. For example, if I were to continue here, so from that step, this one would be, so we just found out that would be 7 minus 1. And then this one here would be, so remember that will be half times by 12. You times up to the top, which is 12 over 2. Now, if you can see that 12 divided by 2 equals 6, then you can just get straight to the answer. And the reason for that is 2 times 6 is 12. Therefore, 12 divided by 2 would be 6. And 12 divided by 6 would be 2. Okay, so that'll be 7 minus 1 minus 6. And note that when you see this, you need to see them as terms, like so. Okay, and the terms come with the sign in front of it. So 7 minus 1 is 6, minus 6 is 0. So that's the answer for this question here. Okay, another example is this one here, where if you were to substitute the values 30 into m and 1/4 into n, you would get something like 0.1 times by 30 plus 8 minus 12 times by 1 over 4. So when you're multiplying a fraction with a whole number, right? Sorry, a decimal number with a whole number, you can just multiply the actual number. So in this case, I would do 30 times 1, which is 30. But now you gotta see that, you gotta count how many decimal places are there in the multiplication. So there's 1 decimal places, all right, because 0.1. Then you put back the 1 decimal place, which means the answer is 3.0 or just 3. Okay, and then plus 8 is the same. So once again, you work this one out. 12 times 1 on 4, whole number just times to the top. So that'll be 12 on 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that'll be minus 3. So that'll be 11 minus 3, which is 8. Let me give you a few more examples of this form here. A fraction, a decimal multiplied by a whole number. Let's say 0.3 times by 10. So if you've got 0.3 times 10, again, you do 3 times 10, which is 30, and then see how many decimal places. Well, there's 1. So if we put back 1 decimal places, 3.0 is just 3. Okay, and let's see, another example would be, 0.75 times by 12, for example. 0.575 times by 12. There are a few ways of doing this, but again, we will go with a straightforward one, which is 75 times 12. You just got to do this multiplication here. That will be 10 and then 150, and that will be 75. So that will be 009. So 900. There are 2 decimal places, which means you put back 2 decimal places. So the answer would be 9.0, which is just 9 wholes. Another way to do this one would be to rewrite the 0.75 as a common fraction. So the common fractions are, let's say 0.25 is 1/4, right? And then 0.5 is a half. 0.75 is 3/4. So I rewrite this number 0.75 as 3/4 times by 12. Same thing, I can times 12 to the top, so that would be 36 over 4. Now 36 divided by 4 is just 9. So that's another way of getting this done. Okay, the next type of question I see you struggle with is this type here, one-step multiplication and division equations, fractions and decimals. So when you're solving an equation, one step, right, Now note that this one is 5 times by d, so you want to do the opposite of that, which is divide by 5. But note that when you divide by 5 on the left hand side, and so on the right hand side you need to divide by 5, but you don't want to write fraction over a fraction, so you would write it as divide by 5 here. So the left hand side divide by 5 will cancel off the 5, so d would be now 1/2. The division is the same as multiplying the reciprocal, right? And the reciprocal of 5 is 1/5. Okay, so when you're dividing by 3, for example, this is the same as times by 1/3. That's another example. Or when you're dividing by, let's say, a fraction, 2/3, is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal, which is 3/2. Right, so that's how you convert a division into a multiplication. And then again, multiplying fractions, just times the top together and the bottom together, so d would be 1/10. Another example here is 7/2 equals to 7/10 times h. Now again, you want to divide both sides by the number that is multiplied into h, so you want to divide by 7/10. So note that when you divide by 7/10, the left hand side will cancel out, but remember the right hand side will cancel out, and then the left hand side you would have to write divide by 7/10. So when you divide by that, it will turn into multiplying the reciprocal, which is 10/7. So note that only the part after the division get flipped around, okay, and then the right hand side is just h. So when you're doing this multiplication, you can actually try to simplify first. So you pick a number on top and a number at the bottom. If it's the same, you divide them by the same number, say 7, right? They will actually cancel out. So then you would get 10/2 equals to h, and you can simplify further. Or you can see that 10 divided by 2 is just 5, so 5 equals h is the final answer. Okay, another example is this one here, 0.8t equals to 4. So note that this is a decimal number, right? If you don't know how to work with decimal, you gotta turn that into a fractions if you can. So let's turn it into fractions. 0.8 is 8 and then 1 decimal place, so 8 divided by 10. So once you convert into a fraction, all the other steps are the same. You would divide by 8/10 on both sides. So the left hand side would just be t, and then the right hand side is 4, and then you want to divide by 8/10. Make sure you write every single step that I'm doing here, otherwise you'll be very confused. And again, same thing, divide by a number is multiplied by the reciprocal. And let's see if we can simplify a few things. 4, or actually you can just multiply that in. So let's say go straightforward, times to the top, 40/8. 40 divided by 8 is just 5. Okay, so I'll write t equals to 5 here. That's how you solve these one-step equations. So the next kind of question I see you struggle with is this one here, where you're supposed to combine like terms. Now note that in this one, you need to see that the negative k is one term, right? And then minus of this entire bracket is another term. So there are 2 terms in this expression. So you want to expand that term first. So negative becomes a positive, right? Minus is a plus, so it'll be plus 8k, and the other side is minus k. Same thing, so minus k means minus 1k, so essentially you're doing what is minus 1 plus 8. If it's 1 minus 1 plus, the answer will be a difference. But is it plus or the minus? Now let's see, the positive is on a bigger number, the negative is on a smaller number, so the answer will be a positive 7. Okay, so the answer for this one will be just 7k. Okay, here is another example. Again, 3 terms, 5k, and then negative 2k, and then negative of negative 1. So once again, open the brackets, 5k is the same, then plus negative is minus, so that'll be minus of 2k, and negative is a plus, so that'll be plus 1. So note that in these new ones, 5k is a term, negative 2k is a term, and 1 is a term, plus 1 is a term. Right, the only 2 like terms are 5k and negative 2k, because they both have k. 1 is not a like term, so that just has to be left alone. Right? And 5k minus 2k is just 3k, so the answer is 3k plus 1. Okay, lastly is this kind of question here, where one of the term is simple and the other one is a bracket of 2 terms. So when you expand this bracket, the negative will change the sign of every term inside it. Right? So inside the brackets, there are 2 terms here. So this one would make it into negative 3z is the same. Right? Minus z is plus z. And then minus 2 is plus 2. Right? That's the difference. And then these 2 will combine. So negative 3 plus 1. Again, you're doing negative 3 plus 1. the answer will be a difference, which is 2, but the negative is on a bigger number, so that'll be negative 2. So negative 2z plus 2 is the answer. Okay, so another one here, when you have a number multiply into a fraction, you need to multiply that to each of the term in the fraction. So same thing, negative k stays the same, and 2 times negative 2k is negative 4k, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Alright, let's combine these two like terms. The negative 10 is not a like term, so it's just remains the same. Now what you're doing is minus 1, minus 4. Note that they are both negative. So when you combine them, minus 1, minus 4, it becomes more negative, or negative 5. So that'll be negative 5k minus 10. Alright, that's it. Please retry the exercise that you had some struggle with, and then let's see how you go.